Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Jonathan and Benjamin. They're co-founders at CreatorPlus. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. It's great to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you guys on the show. I think what you guys are doing at CreatorPlus is actually really innovative and cool. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know each one of you a little bit better. And maybe, Jonathan, do you want to go first? Maybe give us a little background on, where you grew up, where you went to school, and then maybe your career with some career highlights. And then I'll let Benjamin do the same. And then we'll dive into how you guys met and what exactly CreatorPlus is.
Happy to. Thanks. And thanks again for having me, Kevin. So I'm Jonathan Shambroom, and I grew up in New York. And cool. I went to Connecticut College, where I was an English major and really enjoyed studying liberal arts. But I also had one of the first Mac computers in my dorm and was always fascinated with computers and felt destined to do something related to technology. And coming out of school as an English major, but having then studied business a bit, it was early 90s. I was in San Francisco, and multimedia was just being born. I saw the debut of QuickTime, moving pictures on a computer, and interactivity in its earliest form. And I just knew it was for me. And I was really in the right place at the right time. I got into an early tech startup doing video games, and I was hooked. And I had kind of skilled up related to multimedia at the time, but I came in through the product side, and it was a boutique video game company in South Park of San Francisco, and I worked there for 4 years. I had great fortune of working with top people, and what I really enjoyed was the creative process in a technical environment for a business outcome. And software development was enthralling. And during those years, the internet burst onto the scene. Mosaic and the Netscape went public, and the web was here. And the video game company kind of was catching the tail end of that. And during my 4 years there, I shipped a lot of shrink wrap products, went through a lot of product development, knew that I loved it. And then with the web, we started making games that had downloadable characters and additional things you could add from the web. And the web just had captivated most of the Bay Area. And from that moment on, the video game company got acquired, which was great. And I then went with my boss, who had founded a web startup in '97, and I've stayed on the web ever since. And I continued to stay on the product side, with startup after startup, and just loving it, mostly in the entertainment and media space, almost all consumer facing. And to just shorten the story a bit, CreatorPlus is now my 10th tech startup.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you. I keep doing it because I love it. I did try a few years on the investing side. I had a stint as a VC in an early stage investment firm called Launch Capital, but that largely served to, reinforce my preference for building and operating. But I love the people that are attracted to startups. Being able to work with Ben, it's amazing. It's, CreatorPlus, I'll say unabashedly, it's my favorite startup of all to date. And of my previous startups, my first 8 were all VC backed. and all 8 of them got acquired, which is a great run. Not all of them were the same positive outcome. Most of them were very positive. Some were hits, and some of them were acquisitions without any financial outcome. So I've seen this the story go every different direction. I've been through fundraise almost at every single company, and I love the creative process, and I love working with just top caliber people. And Ben and I can tell the story of how we met and got connected and started to build CreatorPlus. But it's an exciting time. I really appreciate this company and the opportunity Ben and I have to build it. But I'm a tech startup guy. Came up through the product side. Some of the exits, just for the sake of adding names, Evite was one of my first companies. Our brand product. So early days related to social networking. Did other social networking companies. Tagged.com, which was the third largest behind Facebook and LinkedIn, and then a startup in the social video space called Grouper, which Sony Pictures bought, and it's now Crackle and still alive. And that was a great experience. It was the early days of online video. Grouper was started just 9 months after YouTube started, and we were acquired by Sony just 6 weeks before Google bought YouTube. So the early days, and that was a connection Ben and I had of having worked in the space of online video, working with creators and working with earlier even with user generated content, and seeing all the cycles of technology, and the web and consumer behavior. So it was kind of an epic connection when Ben and I met. But let me turn it over to Ben so you can hear his story, which is even better than mine.
Sure. Go ahead, Ben.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks, Kevin, again for having us today. So on my end, I was born in San Francisco, grew up in the Bay Area, went to school back east at Syracuse, attracted there for their communication school. When I grew up in the Bay Area, I got involved at a young age in journalism. So I had experience working for some of the newspapers in the Bay Area, television company, KBR radio. So I was dabbling in the different fields and trying to figure out which I actually like best. And in school, I got interested in the internet. This is still in the late 90s. And so the part that was attractive to me was that very few people actually could claim 10 years of experience in that area. So it just seemed like a lot of people are kind of like learning together. And so post school, the idea of actually, not having to like spend 10, 15 years and like prove yourself and work your way up, but rather just get onto it, seemed a lot more attractive to me. And had a lucky break and get an internship with Yahoo. There's actually placed me overseas in Singapore. That's when I was in school, and then that turned into a full-time job straight out of school, leading Yahoo Broadcast. So early days internet in Asia, then more of a B2B kind of focus than consumer. So did that for a number of years. Joined eBay, led marketing in parts of Asia, launching eBay in a couple countries across Southeast Asia. Helped get the team hired for marketing in Hong Kong. Worked there in cross-border trade, and then stayed in Hong Kong. Worked at Turner Broadcasting. We got deeper into online gaming, from small scale kind of web and mobile games to large scale multi-million dollar massively multiplayer online games. And so building out, today we talk about like the metaverse. It was like early days of virtual worlds and those environments, and experimenting with storytelling through interactive entertainment, interactive gameplay, and also experimenting with how IP gets formed online and how you can build a IP franchise that resonates with consumers where they want to spend money, on that. And so did that for a number of years, and then joined Google initially to lead marketing for YouTube across Asia, focused on the creator side of the house, so the supply side, and just getting people in the region to recognize that YouTube actually had economic opportunity. Then moved into a content role, worked on the launch of YouTube Kids, and worked on education and news, and then came back to the States in 2015, took on a global role managing the top creative partnerships team. Then spun out of the company in early 18, and to stay focused actually in the creator ecosystem, having a hand in advisory and incubating new companies, but also investing in early stage, a mix of enterprise and consumer focused companies that enterprise more tech and tools, supporting creators, and then consumer is more emerging consumer platform opportunities in the space. Yeah, and then CreatorPlus, something that I think the idea of kind of working with creators as storytellers, and helping them kind of evolve their storytelling prowess, and connecting that actually with a consumer audience that they've gone and amassed and built some substantial kind of engagement. Something I had seen over the years in different forms. And last year, I'd say that the stars aligned, and Jonathan and I were able to meet, come together, and get the company founded off the ground.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about how did you guys meet, and then let's dive into you guys brainstorming and come up with the idea of CreatorPlus, and then we'll get into what exactly it is.
Sure. So, I mean, we met through a mutual friend, an ex colleague of mine from YouTube, and so that was a connection. I'm in Los Angeles. Jonathan's up in Northern California. And so given the pandemic, we were, I mean, everyone's working remote last year. So we met through a series of video calls, and
That's cool.
just talking very high level about tech startups, the ecosystem, and where things are kind of at, and and then more specifically in what's become kind of CreatorPlus. I talked about that and the opportunity, and shaped that actually over a series of video calls. Then I remember Jonathan actually saying, excited kind of to dig deeper and actually make this the next thing he's working on. And it's like, maybe we should actually meet in person at least once, before we kind of like totally formalize this. And it was like, yeah, that could be a good idea. So we had dinner down in LA, which was a good night. And but went through the entire fundraise process and actually building up the initial core team all through video calls.
Wow.
So just the sign of times, I guess, during the pandemic, when you're not doing a lot of face to face. But we had really good mix of investors from outside the U.S. And I think maybe another time it would have been hopping on a plane and jetting around and meeting folks face to face. But the benefit of last year is we were able to stay home and just do it through video calls.
Interesting. So how did you go ahead, sorry.
From my back-to-back startup experiences, pre-COVID, they're so intensely about the people and the chemistry, just as a starting point. The early team, and Ben, as you mentioned, Ben and I had, sometimes nightly or many times a week, long calls, and we were doing the whole get to know you process through video, which had some convenience, but it's really just a classic COVID startup from us as founders meeting and formulating the idea, riffing on that. And then, as Ben mentioned, we did the entire fundraise virtually, and even almost all of our initial hires done virtually as well. So one for the pandemic's storybook.
Sure. So I'm curious then, how did you guys basically decide that you want to co-found this and then actually start recruiting people? Because it's a real challenge to get to know people over the phone, right? Or video call. Do you have advice for that?
I mean, I came to it calibrated from a career's worth of startup experiences, founding teams, as reference, and a clear view of what I'm looking for and what do I have to offer. And the more Ben and I talked, the more convicted I became that it's a perfect fit, because we shared a lot of values and a lot of vision for the opportunity, and we came to it from very different backgrounds that are very complementary, and both sides are needed. I mean, Ben has worked with creators really his whole career,
Right.
on the content side, content programming, marketing, commercialization of content in some of the best places, YouTube, Yahoo, Turner, eBay. And I'm from the tech startup side, building platforms, consumer experiences, entertainment related, and scaling, and growing, and building startups. And it just clicked. And you have to go in eyes wide open. But we had many conversations, where we were just making sure that we were aligned on the business model, the type of organization to build, the type of people, the roles. I mean, we were exhaustive in exploring a lot of the big decisions we both know we're making in our first years. And a lot of it was around the fundraise too. Something that we're both very familiar with from both sides of raising or investing. And it was just a great fit.
Oh, very cool. So I'm curious to know, how did you guys come up with the idea for Creator Plus, and what exactly is it?
That's that's our starting point. Ben, do you want to share some of the history of what you had seen and how it informed you, as we started our conversations?
Yeah. So I'd say, like, I mean, for me, some of it kind of goes back to the days at Turner. I was referencing before, and actually working with young content creators that were you know developing new IP online, and you know at the time, it was operating within in Time Warner, and now it's Warner Media, but a company that is adapting kind of books, comics, and other things into film and television, but did not have a big track record, or gaming actually IP as well, but did not have a big track record, or really one at all. I would say, kind of at the time of digital first IP that then could be turned into a substantial kind of brand and franchise. But I was lucky to kind of work on something in Asia that has actually stood up over time, developed in 2008, and still going today. And so I'd seen that kind of firsthand, and where effort kind of put into that foundation could have payoff for years to come. And when I joined YouTube and was working with creators, I was seeing a lot of similarities of the folks I was working with my Turner days to folks at YouTube, but then they also brought this community building element that I had not kind of seen before in, say, traditional media, and how that was actually developing itself organically. So there are certain things that creators were bringing to the table there, and then other elements that were kind of gaps. And I had worked on that a bit, when I was at YouTube, and kind of fill in some of those gaps, or seeing where things can kind of go. And I used to enjoy kind of asking creators, about their hopes and ambitions, and just to kind of see how far out were they kind of thinking. And some would, tell me that they had aspirations to be a filmmaker. And I was like, great. So, like, what are you doing to kind of further that goal, set that kind of in motion? And I was also thinking about, like, what is the role for YouTube to kind of play, in that career goal. And there's some challenges, operating a global tech platform that is not necessarily kind of producing content, but is really the one distributing and monetizing that. And then there's certain things that, again, creators needed support, some handholding and guidance on, from that side. So I just saw, like, their reach and their resonance with consumers was pretty strong. And it kind of struck me that it's like, well, there's stories to be told, and there's some constraints maybe in some of these ad supported platforms, and the type of story that you would actually lean in and go and tell, and just what's economically feasible. But seeing how creators have evolved over the last 10, 15 years, and found other ways to monetize outside of ads. And I was just of the view that, I think if you're telling a certain kind of story in a certain way, consumers will actually show up and pay for that. But it needs to be differentiated from what you're offering for free and ad supported today. So how to go about that, and then the other side was actually just around that IP kind of building and commercialization outside of the content. So there's like that aspect to it. I think then the other side was, seeing on the means of delivery. There's other kind of platforms today where you can go off and distribute content, but as the content kind of producer, you're somewhat disintermediated from the end consumer. It's the platform's kind of relationship, and you distribute through them. So like you could have subscribers on YouTube, but those are all controlled by YouTube, and they don't hand those over to you to then start managing yourself directly so that you can take that elsewhere outside of YouTube. So I think what, something I thought about for a while was where you can actually kind of empower some of the creators to actually have that relationship and direct access to that. And then I think the other side is just the economics of, how to incentivize and when there's success and upside, how to have that go down to the consumer. So the thought there was, it's like, well, it's not just about making the content, it's also about how you deliver it. And so having a hand in both the tech platform element and also the content development and content studio side seem to be pretty important. Now, as a young startup, could be seen to be rather audacious. But it was like, well, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go and pursue it just because it's audacious. And so that's, what Jonathan and I, talked about a lot was like, how do you take a pretty broad kind of view of things and something that some people would actually say is rather audacious, but then turn it into kind of practical next steps where you can actually have this get realized and come together as a company.
Very cool. So as a creator, how do creators actually use the platform?
Ben, I can take that, and I think a good starting point for that is, even a restatement of what CreatorPlus is, because how we got here, and all the firsthand experience that Ben had is pretty unique, and it led us to. By the way, if you hear the dog barking, that's just because he loves this podcast in the background. We are both a content studio and our own distribution platform, and we've built both, and that's the audacity that we're talking about. It's an ambitious undertaking, and yep, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so do you get creators applying to be part of the platform? Do you go seek creators out and then ask them to be on the platform? A bit of both, or how does that work?
It's a bit of both, and I'll explain the content studio side, which is where that lives, and that is we wanted to build the best studio but with the lean mentality of a tech startup. So we have a head of studio, we have a head of development who is constantly sourcing and talking with writers, directors, producers, scripts, material, that IP that's out there. We are both inbound, we live in this dual flow of people seeking us out and coming to us, and we're also actively engaging across the spectrum of talent, from creators to material, identifying people and projects that we want to work with. But just to state again, this our starting point, we want to give creators access and opportunity that they haven't really had before to make film, to do a long form story, and to offer it directly to their audience in a transactional way. So our first window on our platform is PVOD, Premium VOD, where people pay to stream the movie that is, featuring a creator, and the creator as a filmmaker. Frequently, it's creator as a director, first-time director, or producer, or even writer. There are lots of ways that creators can be involved, but primarily a creator that has had a passion for film and wanted to tell long form stories has the opportunity to do so. And because we have the studio and our own distribution platform, we control all of the economics around the business, and we can architect that, and we have, in a way to be very aligned with the creator. Our name is CreatorPlus. We treat creators as equal partners. We're financing films, and in a modest budget range, $1 to $2 million. And after we've recouped that capital, we're sharing that revenue on the back end equally with creators. And that's been very well received. That's pretty new for creators. And it's also unlimited. And for creators that have very large followings, we want to incentivize them to actively promote and get their audience aware and excited about their film, because they're a partner with us in it, with an equal back end upside. So I think that speaks to a little bit, how does a creator participate with us? It could be in a variety of roles on a film, but primarily it's starring in a feature length film, a 90-minute movie, and they may also be producing it or even directing it. So we're making that possible for creators.
Interesting. No, very, very cool. So how does that work then if I have a large following and you reach out to me or I reach out to you? It doesn't really matter. Do we come up with a film together? Does the creator have to submit an idea? Do you have a idea, a bit of both? How does that work?
It definitely can go in all of those different patterns.
Okay.
Frequently, a creator might come to us with an idea. Here's a story I've always wanted to tell, and one of our goals is that we become the first place that creators think of when they realize, God, I've always wanted to do a film. I've got this great idea tucked away in my sock drawer. I know, wow, CreatorPlus is now a viable place for a partner for me to go take it to. But we also look at creators and we see the talent, in the creator set out there. And there's a wide variety of creator types. I mean, Ben knows this, better than anybody. And, specifically the combination of a creator who has that artistic and creative chops and the ability to act and desire to be in a film, combined with a large enough audience to be a meaningful starting point for us. I should say we have our own marketing budgets that we bring to every film that go above and beyond a creator's own reach to across their social graph. But the way that it plays out of pairing material and a script with a specific creator, it goes in a variety of ways, and we've already seen that play out in our early content slate.
Very cool. So do you also help a film get on Netflix or Hulu or any other of those platforms, or is that really dependent on the project, or how does distribution outside of Creator Plus and my following go?
The first window is on CreatorPlus, on our
Okay.
platform, which spans mobile and web and connected TV. We're starting with an iOS and Android app, and you'll be able to cast it to TV as well. And again, a lot of this is rooted in our context. Our audience is primarily Gen Z, 13 to
Right.
21-year-olds, and we know that they just live in mobile. And we've done, and we still do, constant research to make sure we understand how they consume. What are they interested in? And the first window on CreatorPlus is our focus. Beyond that, yes, we will then distribute it in secondary windows across the channels and platforms that exist across geographies all over the world. And there's an incredible variety of them. And we want to maximize that, because the more reach and the more revenue a film can achieve, it's equally good for the creator, as it is for CreatorPlus. And that also ties into the kinds of stories that we want to tell. And specifically, we want to have impact. We want to tell stories that matter. And we want them, to travel far and wide. So yes, we will seek distribution across a lot of the popular platforms today, but only after it debuts and premieres, in the PVOD window on CreatorPlus.
Got you. Okay. That makes sense. So do you want to maybe give us some uh ideas or films that you've already put out and the topics they're on? Just talk about some of the content you've already created.
Sure. The first film is called Jane. I can share all details around it because we've announced it, so it's public knowledge. We announced this in April, and Jane is coming out next year, and we're really delighted with the material and the cast. It stars Madeleine Petsch, who's the lead in the series Riverdale. It has Chloe Bailey in it as well in a supporting role, and Chloe and her sister Haley are rising pop sensations. They're on Beyonce's label as musicians, 5-time nominated Grammy artist. It has an Oscar winner in it, Melissa Leo, who won Best Supporting Actress in The Fighter, Mark Wahlberg, and other great people beyond that. And Madeleine and Chloe are they're phenomenal in it. The film wrapped in its production phase. Principal photography finished over the summer. We're editing it now, and it's going to come out in early spring, probably the beginning of Q2 next year. So that's our first film, and it has a first-time director in it, Sabrina Jaglom, who was great, who is the writer and director. Madeleine, as the lead, is also a first-time producer in it. So, we feel great with our first project. Really showing the variety of ways a creator can participate in a film, act, produce, giving opportunity to new talent, and it's consistent with wanting to give creators that access and that opportunity. We're at a high level, we're placing bets on creators as talent that we think can do more than just the short form that they're so famous for. But we see in them the potential for full features. So Jane is the first one, and it's a psychological thriller. It's a dark thriller, but the subject matter centers around mental health and the pressures that adolescents face in high school, living in social media, applying to colleges, competitiveness, and the issues that they have to grapple with in that journey.
Very, very cool. So I'm curious then, you mentioned you guys raised money to actually build the platform and set out the studio up and everything. What made you guys decide to raise money? Because it sounds like you probably could have self-funded, or did you do a little bit of both? Or what made you decide to actually raise money?
Well, so we raised $12 million for the company and had that round close earlier this year. And so the financing that we secured is to give us, the ability to build out the platform that Jonathan was talking about, and also put in motion and start producing a slate of films. I think as we are bringing the films to market in 2022, it's important to us to actually kind of demonstrate this direct-to-consumer model and premium VOD content and actually working with creators and the ways in which we're partnering with them to actually engage their community through that PVOD kind of window. And it's something that we felt we didn't want to be doing this just off the back off the back or the basis of one film,
Right.
but actually to have multiple films actually put into market next year. And as we're able to test and refine our approach to then look at further expansion of the business both here in the North America region, but also given the global nature of the creator ecosystem and the partners that have actually backed us. There's a global ambition that we have actually for the content, the stories, and the creators that we actually want to be, the stories we want to be telling, and the creators that we actually want to be working with.
No, that's very cool. And I think the fact that you're basically allowing, because, well, let's be honest here, not everybody could shoot a full feature film, just because sometimes there's just lack of resources, money, and probably a handful of other things. So you're basically leveling the playing field and allowing, anybody that has a good story to tell the ability to tell it, right? At a basic, simple level. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, sure. So I think like before, again, if I just go back to some of my experience at YouTube and things I've kind of seen in the market here in LA, is that there, I think for certain types of content and how it's kind of distributed, there's an expectation of quality, and some
Yeah.
equate quality to what it costs to make. So then you also get into higher budget things, and then it's like, well, do I trust the person that I'm going to be working with that they can actually manage something at that budget level? Have they actually done that before? Right. So you have some of these ceilings that you kind of have to break through, and you need kind of the experience to then kind of show folks that you're capable to be trusted actually with the budget, but also maybe the oversight of a larger kind of crew. And so I think where we're trying to show up is to lean in and provide that opportunity for people rather than kind of say, you don't have it, so therefore we don't quite believe that you actually are capable. So as Jonathan's kind of said before, in our first film, we're offering, or we've provided kind of roles and opportunities that are first for some of those folks in their career. Um, so say that's on that side. And I think then with some of the creators and the again the ad supported kind of models and what's economically feasible, you have productions or crew sizes that are matched to that advertising based model, right? But then when you get into the transactional model and then the secondary distribution that we're looking at, there's a path of where you can actually be investing more, into those productions, and so that is it's a rather big step up, I think, for some of the creators that we're actually working with. I think if we're dealing with folks that have spent their career in kind of traditional Hollywood entertainment, they would consider our budgets to be, micro. But I think from the context of a creator, it is a incredible jump in both budget and resources that we're actually offering. And so we know that these creators have actually been very successful, kind of again building communities on an organic basis and engaging that audience base on a much lower kind of price point. And so our view is that as we kind of increase this uh, budget actually on content and bring that to market, we can put a price point around that, and there's going to be a fair exchange between us and the creators and then the consumers, and provided that actually does play out, we can make that kind of repeatable, and we continue on.
No, I think that's actually really innovative, and it's cool that you guys are doing this. But I'm curious then, how has COVID kind of changed things in the creator space? And maybe not, obviously there's a ton of negatives, but is there any positives that have come out of, just even in your guys' case, like you met virtually, eventually you met
Yep.
for dinner, you guys obviously got funding remote. So I think like more and more things, the world seems to have gotten smaller. And what are your thoughts around the space and creating content, especially in the film space? How's it kind of changed the landscape?
Yeah, so I kind of have a view. I don't know if this company actually would have been formed had it not really been for the pandemic. And so I think last
Interesting.
year as movie theaters actually were shuttered, so the theatrical kind of box office, uh, decline at a pretty large level. And so I think one of the things there is it's like are consumers going to return back to the theater at the levels they were pre-pandemic? There's lots of smart people out there that kind of say no. We kind of share that view, and so there is billions of dollars of consumer spend to be redistributed. Now, do
Uh,
consumers still actually enjoy receiving a story in a long form manner? So through a feature film, our view there is yes. But are they showing a propensity to actually want to consume that in a differentiated way than going in their car and going to a movie theater and sitting in the theater to then receive that? Our view is yes. Jonathan and I are both parents, and we have young kids, and we were also remarking a lot last year that our kids love watching film. None of them actually have any romantic notion of wanting to watch a film in a movie theater. So we also look at that kind of that group as they kind of age up. And the view there is it's like, well, if they don't have it now, are they really going to have it later? Or it's not going to be there like it was for previous generations. And so they'll want to consume, they'll want to actually engage. Their notion of a star is one that they actually know more so from online than from traditional kind of media means. And so if we just play that out over the next decade, um, we think it's a fair bet to make that we're playing into where consumer attitudes and sentiment are kind of going than what we're trying to protect some legacy model. So I think a lot of that was just kind of brought to the forefront last year. And, I've also kind of say that just from conversations I had with folks pre-pandemic that would express interest into financing film and working with creators, but it was always around like she then getting that film into a movie theater. And then for that, then it's like, well, it needs to be done at a $15 million budget. And then for that, then I need to kind of trust that I can, or I need to believe that I can trust the creator and the things I was talking about before. Right. And so it just cancels a lot of people kind of out.
right.
Right. And so
Yeah,
we're
that's
going into
fair.
this and saying like, you can tell a great story and make a great product. You don't need to be doing it for $15 million or more. And yeah, so I think from that side is where we saw, things kind of change in the market, and it seemed to be opportunistic, for us to play into that, and that's kind of how we saw a lot of the investors that have backed us, believed in that as well.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I agree with you. I think, obviously, I think certain people, for probably even certain movies, will want to go see it in a theater. Other people will want to maybe watch it on their phone and then go to the theater, or some sort of combination, right? It seems to me, anyway, that people will consume part of a movie on their phone, maybe, and then they might cast to their TV for part of the time. And like, we're constantly just kind of switching devices sometimes, right? And screen sizes.
That's
So I think
right.
accommodating that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yep.
Go ahead,
That's right.
Jonathan.
I totally agree. And, again, from the lens of starting with our audience and how, like, their behavior, their consumption, and their values, the pandemic accelerated this shift to, consuming from home for a lot of people.
Right,
But we see that that trend was in play, before the pandemic for Gen Z. It's just
right.
a mobile native generation. I wanted to add one aspect of Creator Plus because it's so tied into our audience and also values of the company. And in the same way that we're giving creators an opportunity that they might not have in lots of other places. Another value that Creator Plus is really, has woven into our DNA is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I say that because, it influences, some nature of the stories that we tell. And, from the get-go, we've had a head of diversity, equity, and inclusion, both helping us think about stories and people, but also specifically wanting to cultivate, talent. And we've had a program live that we just announced in September, and it's live, called Flip the Script. And our own Ben O'Keefe, who's running that program, helped us architect this, which is a short film fund for BIPOC film creators. And we are funding 6 BIPOC filmmakers to create a short. And we're giving each one of them up to $25,000 and then helping them produce a short. And, it's a great development program for talent, but it also is just consistent with us, seeking creators who are more diverse than ever today. And young audiences themselves are more diverse than ever, and they also care more about diversity, and impact today. So that's an aspect of how are projects coming to us. We have filmmakers that are applying for that program, still with a great first class that is shaping up right now.
No, very cool. And I'm also assuming then, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that from idea to actually starting production is probably a lot faster than getting a traditional film kind of to production. Is that fair to say?
We've had that feedback so far. I think there's a wide variety of reference points for it. But
Sure.
we formed the company, and announced our fundraise in March or April, and had our first film into production, and it's coming out basically a year later. That does strike a lot of people as being pretty quick.
No, I think that's really great. But we're kind of coming to the end of the show. So how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about CreatorPlus and any other links you want to mention?
Absolutely. So CreatorPlus.com, CreatorPlus.com is our site. And you can email careers@CreatorPlus.com. And there's, a wide variety of ways to work with us. And, we welcome input, across the board. So we'd love to hear from you. And especially if you're, if you have, film ideas and aspirations, let us know.
Very cool. Well, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show. I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, guys. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.